Professor Brian Dobbin. I'm here today in front of the Justice Building in Esch-sur-Alzette for two reasons. First of all, the building was designed by noted Luxembourg architect Jim Clements, who's not only very well respected, but is a Miami alumnus. The other reason is, as you can see all over the walls, are various virtues. Virtues are good qualities for a person, a place, or even an institution in this case to have. And in this module, we're going to be studying virtue ethics. Okay, to prepare you for the reading, I want to mention two features of Aristotle's theory. The first is the so-called doctrine of the mean, and the second is, surprisingly enough, friends. Now, the doctrine of the mean is actually pretty simple to understand. Virtues are not things that people have or don't have. They are things that we all have to various degrees. And Aristotle points out that for each virtue, there's a right amount of that virtue to have. You can be too nice, you can be insufficiently nice, for example. As a professor, I should be more sympathetic than a soldier should be, but presumably less sympathetic than someone who works in palliative care ought to be. And this doctrine has come to be known as the doctrine of the mean. So the idea is that for each virtue, there's a right amount to have, and you can have it excessively or defectively. Now, it's very tricky to figure out exactly how much you should have of each virtue because it varies from person to person. And so Aristotle gives us the analogy of caloric intake. He points out that a professor and a wrestler shouldn't eat the same number of calories every day. Right? So what a wrestler needs to eat is a lot more than what I need to eat because I'm older and I have a sedentary lifestyle. Okay, it's pretty easy to figure out whether you are, for example, generous. The question is, are you sufficiently generous? And Aristotle realizes it's very difficult for any one of us to determine whether we have exactly the right amount of virtue. And so he says what you need is a virtue friend. Now, this person needs to know you as well as you know yourself. In fact, Aristotle uses a very interesting Greek expression, auto allos, that is, the friend should be another self. And the idea is that while you can tell, for example, if you're being generous, only a virtue friend can tell you if you're being exactly the right amount of generous. Now, Aristotle acknowledges that it's very difficult to find virtue friends, but nonetheless, that's a solution to the problem of bias. Okay, so a virtue is simply a good quality for a person or a place or a thing to have. For example, Luxembourgers often say that a virtue of their country being so small is that it's very easy to travel internationally. In fact, right now I can get to Paris faster than a lot of people who live at the northern and southern ends of France can. So a virtue is just a good quality. Okay, I want to end by just pointing out some feature or some virtue of Aristotle's theory that I personally think is incredibly brilliant of Aristotle. All philosophers assume that human beings are naturally selfish. That is, we naturally do what is best for us, or at least what we think is best for us. And the trick to ethics is trying to get people to see that there's more in the world than just them, and the different theories have different approaches to this. And you'll see them later on in the course. But what I think is brilliant about Aristotle is he doesn't try to change us from being selfish. His theory says you should try to be the best person that you can become. So in other words, he's taking advantage of the fact that we're selfish, that we want to do things for our own sakes, and saying, okay, great, become the best person that you can become. Become all you can become. And so that way, being a good human being amounts to being the best person you can become. One aspect of Aristotle's theory that I want to make sure is clear to you is that while it's relative, it's not subjective. That is, you and I probably should have different levels of sympathy and kindness and so on, but we don't get to choose. It has to do with who we are. Since I think brevity is a virtue, I'm going to stop now and let you get to the readings. Good luck and enjoy Aristotle.